Coming up.
Don't lock me in, sir. Don't lock me in.
That is the training video I want to watch.
I'm an actual person in that.
Oh my God, have we got a different script?
Could we try it again?
Don't light the cigarette.
Be careful.
Direct sexual engagement.
I remember the days.
What's in your booth?
Pushing that blunt old needle in.
Me too.
I've got a pencil.
How did you discover this?
It was the uniform.
A ship that sails backwards never sees the sun rise.
I definitely nailed that.
And now, enjoy the podcast.
How do you say that?
How do you say that?
How do you say that?
How do you say that? Hello and welcome to today's episode of How Do You Say That, sponsored by BritishVoiceover.co.uk, the podcast for voiceovers, podcasters and anyone else with a professional interest in how your script should sound. Let me introduce my co-host, British voice actor and voiceover coach Samantha Boffin, to give her full title. Now, today's fun fact about Sam is that when she was a little girl, she wanted to marry Virgil, the pilot of Thunderbird 2.
I did.
So you fancy being Mrs. International Rescue, did you?
Well, I don't think I thought about it that hard, but I really liked Virgil. He was like my poster boy when I was about 8, and I hadn't really noticed that he was a puppet. And my sister had to point out quite gently that they were all puppets, and I was very unlikely to marry, therefore, this puppet. Then she told me this terrible story that they'd all been horribly burnt and destroyed in a fire, which was very bizarre.
Virgil had massive eyebrows, didn't he?
I wasn't really looking at the eyebrows, to be perfectly honest.
It was
his
the
whole
uniform.
Hunky uniform, exactly. So anyway, I think that's your thing, actually. Anyway, my co-host is voiceover artist and TV presenter Mark Rice, who not only loves a list, as you'll know if you're a regular listener, but he also loves a spreadsheet.
I do.
Do you? Are you really Mr. Organised then?
I love Excel. I don't like Google spreadsheets. It has to be said. But I can play with Excel all day long, and I'm a bit of a geek and a bit of a nerd with it. I don't know why that's interesting, but it's just one of those things.
Yeah, I'm not a spreadsheet girl at all, but I think that's impressive.
Well, of course, it's not just us here. Every week we invite a voiceover guest to come and share their opinions and their talent, and this week it's one half of the Geek Syndicate, David Monteith. Hello, David.
Hello, everybody.
Hi! Oh, David.
How lovely to be here.
Oh, it's lovely to have you.
I'm still processing the whole puppet thing, to be honest.
Yes, I know.
I thought that might appeal to you.
And I actually came up with that fascinating fact long before I knew that this was particularly you on today's podcast, David. Yes.
No, but of them all, Virgil was the man.
He was, wasn't he? I thought so. There was one, and I can't remember who it was, there was one that wore incredible sort of Hawaiian shirts all the time.
That was Lady Penelope, wasn't it?
No. He was
that Scott of Thunderbird 1?
It might be.
It might have been.
It might be.
But he was
The
kind of
white
lounged
boy.
about in, fantastic shirts. That I do remember. I love a bit of Thunderbirds. Anyway, let's find out a bit more about David. So, as well as a voice actor, he is an actor with an international Shakespeare portfolio, a teacher, a coach, and a director. And this was incredible. 7 operas under your belt.
Wow.
Is that as a director,
As
David?
a director, yeah.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
He was also the first black podcaster in the UK and co-host of the first podcast to make it to TV. That's
Amazing.
incredible.
It is.
Incredible.
I was going to say, that's my podcast, Geek Syndicate, and I started that with
Yeah.
my best friend in 2006.
And it's been on telly as well. It's all brilliant. It's
We
all
got
fab.
a call it was April Fool's Day, and we got a call from a BBC producer, and we thought it was a joke. And it took him a while to convince us that it was real. He used to be a listener. And
Brilliant.
they wanted to do some sci-fi stuff, and they came to us, and it was incredible.
As a voice, David specialises in dramatic genres, audiobooks, audio plays, games and mocap, of course. And in 2022, David was part of a team of narrators for the Atlas 6, which won Best Audiobook in the fantasy genre. That's a rich history, David. Have you had time to think of a fun fact for us?
I have. So I had several, and I didn't know which to go with. And I thought I'd go with my most embarrassing, which was the fact that I did motion capture for a computer game that's just come out called Dead Island 2, which is a zombie game.
Right.
And I didn't actually do voice for this. It was just body. And I was the boss fight at the end. I was the boss zombie that the player fights right at the end. And we had this sequence where the player hits me with an oxygen canister and I go flying 12 feet backwards. Now, in reality, I get hit with a cushion and they've got a mattress behind me and I have to throw myself back. And so I did that, and I threw myself back as far as I could. I overshot the mattress. I hit the floor so hard my skull cap came off.
Oh, no.
I literally saw stars for a couple of seconds. And when I came round, it was only a couple of seconds. When I came round, everybody, there was like 6 people in the room, was laughing. When I say laughing, I mean laughing to the point where we stopped work for 15 minutes. And I was like, why are they laughing? And then I suddenly felt my stomach and went, oh, that pressure's disappeared. So it turned out I hit the floor with my legs akimbo in the air and let out the longest fart in computer game recorded history. But the funniest thing is that we only did one take. So when you play that game and you watch the monster land, you know that monster did the largest fart in gaming history.
Oh, they should have post-produced that in.
They really should.
That's such a good fact.
So why did I share that? I mean, God.
I asked for fun fact, and that definitely is.
Definitely.
There we go.
Right, so on that note, let's have a look at our first script of the show and ask, how do you say that?
Play How Do You Say That?
So, Mark, you have been working on this first script lately, so
Yeah.
it looks like a very exciting health and safety corporate.
Well, yes.
What else can you tell us about that?
Not so exciting, but I do quite a lot of work for this company, and they get a lot of contracts for health and safety videos, and they do animation to it. So you see the workman lifting his cable and taking his helmet off when he's not supposed to, and all of that kind of
okay.
stuff. So it's for engineering companies and construction companies to show their staff what they should and shouldn't be doing.
Right. Okay,
It's
and
as
now
easy as that.
I'm actually looking at it, and I always should read these blooming scripts, but now I'm looking at it, and I can see there is just a hated word, the same hated word, in every single sentence.
Is it the word hazardous by any
It
chance?
is the word hazardous.
Yes, it's not a nice one, is it?
It's not.
It's on a par for me with digital, which
Yeah, digital's
is
horrible.
everywhere. It's always a horrible word.
Oh my God.
But anyway, Sam, have a go, Sam. It's
Yes.
very dry. There
Yes.
isn't much joy in this, but I thought that was a good one
We
to start
believe
with.
in you.
Thank you very much. Right, okay, let's have a little go. God, should have done this. Okay, right, okay. Before working with hazardous materials, you must follow these safe work practices. Store hazardous... Dun, dun, dun.
It's going well.
Okay. Store hazardous chemicals in areas that can be locked but still have good ventilation. Do not store hazardous chemicals in cool drink bottles or any other unmarked container, you idiot.
It doesn't say you idiot,
No,
but you
I
do
know.
have to think.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. So, anyway, ensure hazardous materials are in their original containers that clearly say what they are. Do not pour hazardous materials down drains or dump them. Keep ignition sources, for example, mobile phones, lighters, cigarettes, etc. Cigarettes!
I know.
Away from hazardous materials. Report any leaks or uncontrolled hazardous materials to your supervisor immediately.
It was a fantastic take one.
I was going to say that's the kind of direction. Go. That was great. Can we try it again?
Now you've got
It's like,
used to it,
now you've got
Samantha.
used to it. Now,
Properly.
now you can say the word hazardous. Yes, absolutely. I love that. You put some joy in it, which it doesn't have an awful lot of joy. Just as one extra note that I've just remembered, this
Yes.
client actually likes each individual line separately done. So I have to send them each individual line. So it's files after files after files after files.
I definitely nailed that.
But it does. but it does mean if you go wrong, it doesn't really matter because the sentence doesn't run on from one another.
What a pain in the neck.
Totally, they
in
pay
terms
more for
of-
that. They
Oh,
do
they
pay
do?
more for it. Yeah. Oh yes, I made sure of that.
That's good to know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
David, would you like to go with the hazardous materials?
Why not?
Be
Let's see
careful.
what comes. Now that I've got the shock of people using cigarettes around hazardous materials out the way, I'm good. Okay. Before working with hazardous materials, you must follow these safe work practices. Store hazardous chemicals in areas that can be locked, but still have good ventilation. Do not store hazardous chemicals in cool drink bottles or any other unmarked container. Ensure hazardous materials are in their own original containers that clearly say what they are. Do not pour hazardous materials down drains or dump them. Keep ignition sources, for example, mobile phones, lighters, cigarettes, etc., away from hazardous materials. Report any leaks or uncontrolled hazardous materials to your supervisor immediately.
Lovely. You see, I would actually listen to that if I was played that by an employer.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Because it's fun and it's nice and it sounded like you actually cared about what I did.
Yes.
And that's my whole stick. That's the way I come at most of the things I do. I want it to be something that I would listen to.
Yes.
And I it's like, let's make it a little bit funny. Cool drink bottles. Do you know what?
It's true, actually, because we often kind of look at a corporate and we give it a kind of, very uniform approach, and we think it's got to be quite, serious. But actually, doing it with a bit more joy and a bit more oomph, really makes a difference, I think. Yeah.
I agree 100%, but guess what? The client didn't want it that way.
No. Really?
The client wanted it very straight. So I'm going to attempt, with you two laughing, I'm going to attempt to do it very straight, like I did it for them.
Don't light the cigarette.
Don't light the cigarette, whatever you do. No, quite.
Okay.
All right, then. You're going to find this very dull, I think. Before working with hazardous materials, you must follow these safe work practices. Store hazardous chemicals in areas that can be locked but still have good ventilation. Do not store hazardous chemicals in cool drink bottles or any other unmarked container. Ensure hazardous materials are in their original containers that clearly say what they are. Do not pour hazardous materials down drains or dump them. Keep ignition sources, for example mobile phones, lighters, cigarettes, etc., away from hazardous materials. Report any leaks or uncontrolled hazardous materials to your supervisor immediately.
That was...
I know, that's how they wanted
it.
Sorry, what?
That's kind of how they wanted it.
I kind of think work is hard enough as it is. You don't want to... Everyone hates training. Don't send me to sleep while I'm doing it.
But actually, the three of us doing it in such different ways, I would argue, is really good. So I'm glad I bought a dull script, because it shows that it can be in a different way. I'm quite looking forward to the wild card with that as well.
Yeah, no, it totally can be, I think. And of course, the other thing is it depends on the visuals. Do you ever get to see the visuals, or do you just...
Only afterwards. Yeah. And they're lovely cartoons. I mean, they obviously have a great animation department, but they don't put any sound effects in either. Where I think sound effects would work too.
Out for sound effects.
Isn't it? I know.
Small explosions are called for, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's interesting that we do get these across our desks quite often, don't we?
Mm.
Yes, not me.
Oh, no, you don't?
I don't get this sort of thing very often, I have to confess, and I don't know whether it's... I don't know why. Give me them. They won't give me them now, judging from my first read, will they?
I've had a few.
Yeah.
And the people that have employed me to do them have really gone for the whole conversational approach to it.
I much prefer that. Absolutely. Yeah. The way that that's written, though, and the fact that they want it in separate files so that they can put it with individual bits of animation kind of takes you away from the conversational side of it anyway.
Mm. Yeah.
Yes, I suppose it does. And
Whereas
absolutely.
I've got another company that does something similar, but they like it conversational, and they also write it as dialogue. So actually, it's much nicer.
So are you an actual person in that?
I'm an actual person in
that. Yeah. Oh, that's
I love.
Paul, the IT guy.
Is it stilted? Because sometimes I've had people write dialogue who really shouldn't be writing dialogue.
Actually, it's not
so
bad.
Stilted and unnatural.
I agree. I've seen that. This particular company, it's not bad. It's not bad.
Okay, nice.
It's worthwhile remembering that these are real scripts we've been working on, but we've changed names and some of the details to avoid copyright issues.
Couldn't make up that last script, could you? To be fair.
It's up.
Right, David's brought us a very different script, which is all about... Well, introduce it to us, David, would you?
This is really interesting. I've had an audiobook come out 4 days ago as we're recording this, and it's called Dispatches from the Diaspora, Nelson Mandela to Black Lives Matters, and it's a collection of the reporting of Gary Young, who's a Guardian journalist, or used to be a Guardian journalist, and it's basically 25 years of his reporting that's been collated and curated. Now, one of the chapters in this book is about Bridgerton.
Right. Yes.
And
Right.
it's about the ethnic contribution to Bridgerton and whether it's valid and so on.
Yeah.
And in the middle of this, I mean, the paragraph before this, he talks about someone being eye humped as they get out of a river, and it's just it's a brilliant thing. But the next thing is this, where he's just talking about what makes sort of these period dramas really approachable. And so this is what this is about.
Okay.
And,
Wow.
I'm very excited to see what...
I have to confess, when you started talking and explaining that script, I was thinking, oh my God, have we got a different script?
I thought that too.
And so it was
This
really
is why I chose
interesting.
this.
Yeah, to have started, for that book and for this to be a part of that book, that's really interesting. Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, I'm going to have a go first.
Good.
Not quite sure after that explanation quite how to approach it now. It's certainly, when I read it through earlier, it's certainly not what I had in mind. So, okay, interesting. Right. Repression is a central element of the drama in both Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre. Seduction in these novels is a subtle, socially distanced affair. There may be cads and mistresses, damaged reputations, falls from grace and dishonourable conduct, but all matters of direct sexual engagement are barely alluded to, let alone explicitly depicted. Breeches remain firmly buckled. Bodices remain securely bound. Happily for the novelist, the suggestion of, prelude to, and promise of sex is often more sensual than the act itself.
Whoopee. And
I went through about 4 different styles there.
you did. You went through a lot of stuff. And you did a Miranda in the middle of it. You said something like, direct sexual engagement.
Yes,
it was a real
Such a prude.
Mouth those words.
Yes.
Yeah, this is very. Yeah, I mean because you did. Because it's a really interesting little piece,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is.
It can, send you into lots of different places.
Oh, I love that. Ooh. Nice. What did you think, David? Have I completely nailed it?
Well,
Well,
no,
dot.
I actually thought it was really listenable. Because you engaged with the words that stood out, with the sentences that stood out and make us as people go, ooh, you really engaged with them, and you really played with the lists. So there's, there's lots of lists in this, little
There
lists.
are.
Yeah,
And you played with them, which I think is really important.
Good. Excellent. Well, let's see what Sam does with it, shall we?
Yes. Repression is a central element of the drama in both Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre. Seduction in these novels is a subtle, socially distanced affair. There may be cads and mistresses, damaged reputations, falls from grace, and dishonourable conduct, but all matters of direct sexual engagement are barely alluded to, let alone explicitly depicted. Breeches remain firmly buckled. Bodices remain securely bound. Happily for the novelist, the suggestion of, prelude to, and promise of sex is often more sensual than the act itself.
Oh, I love that.
Lovely.
You went in your kind of what I like to class as your documentary style.
Did I?
And then, but it moved from that quite quickly, and then you kind of went quite whispery, and I loved
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
That was beautiful. Like
Absolutely.
as soon as you said the word seduction, I knew we were getting seductive Sam out.
Yeah.
I said,
Is that a thing?
Seductive Sam's got in the building. Yeah, no. I suppose I thought that first sentence sets the idea, and then the rest of the piece sort of embroiders that idea, I suppose. So I kind of did that. I didn't do it on purpose particularly, but I think I must have thought, okay, let's make the statement and then let's embroider it.
I thought it worked beautifully.
No, that's a fantastic approach.
Now I really want to hear how you did it.
Yeah, I bet it's going to be completely different to anything we've
would imagine so.
thought of.
Let's see. Repression is a central element of the drama in both Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre. Seduction in these novels is a subtle, socially distanced affair. There may be cads and mistresses, damaged reputations, falls from grace and dishonourable conduct, but all matters of direct sexual engagement are barely alluded to, let alone explicitly depicted. Breeches remain firmly buckled, bodices remain securely bound. Happily for the novelist, the suggestion of, prelude to, and promise of sex is often more sensual than the act itself.
Lovely.
Wow.
What I loved about that is you got a real sense of comedy, almost joy,
Yes.
and you didn't take it or yourself too seriously. I really liked that. Yeah.
There was a couple of things there for me, because I always, when I was teaching acting, I would always say, how do you feel about the word? How do the words you're feeling make you, how do the words you're reading make you feel?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was a really engaging, like, both Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre, I find them quite boring. So I just want to get past that bit.
Yes.
Seduction.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
I remember
we
the
like that.
days. I remember.
You have this innate ability of drawing people in to listen so that you're actually actively listening rather than passively listening. It's wonderful.
Oh, stop. I mean, go on, but, you know.
Because actually the interesting thing, of course, that you did there in that little piece was that you did run a lot of those sentences together.
Yep.
You kind of ignored, which was really lovely, actually, you kind of ignored the punctuation that was actually written, and you took this idea and you ran with it, and you pulled all those sentences together. So it gave a real, it gave a real sense of, drama and build, which was lovely, yeah.
How do you say that?
Right, let's mix it up a bit then, shall we? With the section of the show where almost anything can happen, from tears to laughter. It has happened. The wild card section. Let's see if we can approach these scripts in a completely different way.
Yes. So, David, can you pick one of these scripts for me and think of something new I can do with it, a new motivation or something?
Okay. I want you to do script one.
Okay.
Okay.
Look, my favourite script, my favourite one.
Exactly. Now, this is inspired by my sister, who used to be in the Navy,
Oof. Ooh.
and showed me the scar where she sewed up her own leg. So,
Wow.
Goodness.
I know, she's quite mad. I'd like you to be sewing up your own injury
Wow.
in a war zone.
Right. Okay.
So almost think like a computer game where, you're under fire and... but you've got to sew up your own injury.
Ouch.
Okay. Before working with hazardous materials, you must follow these safe work practices. Store hazardous chemicals in areas that can be locked, but still have good ventilation. Do not store hazardous chemicals in cool drink bottles or any other unmarked container. Ensure hazardous materials in their original containers that clearly state what they are. Do not pour hazardous materials down drains or dump them. Keep ignition sources, for example, mobile phones, lighters, cigarettes, etc., away from hazardous materials. Report any leaks or uncontrollable hazardous materials to your supervisor immediately.
Oh, my God.
That is the training video I want to watch.
Do you know what? My hands were over my mouth. I could
Me too.
feel the pain. Wow.
That's incredible.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Wow.
Good Lord.
I was actually literally sewing my arm up, and so there were moments where I was pushing that blunt old needle in. So that really helped.
You could tell.
Actually. That really helped.
Now, when you said literally just then, you didn't really mean literally, did you?
No.
It was just
Yes.
acting, wasn't it?
Because I always have a blunt needle in my booth for this kind of thing. No, obviously.
You never
obviously,
know.
no. But it's surprising how you can believe it, though.
Yes.
It is surprising how you can believe it.
Well, David, I'm going to give one to you now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go with something that I know is very close to your heart, but I think I'm going to go with the Pride and Prejudice piece of script. But I would like you to do it, and you can choose which of the 13 you choose as one of the Doctor Who's.
Doctor.
Do you know, I've just got to say, I've worked with a guy called Jonathan Carley.
Right.
And I heard him do impressions of John Hurt's Doctor and Paul McGann's Doctor.
Wow.
You close your eyes, it's them. I mean, if you go to a Big Finish, do War Doctor Begins series, and it's Jonathan Carley doing John Hurt, and it is uncanny. It's unbelievable. It's shockingly good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a skill on itself. So, blimey, as a doctor. Okay, right then. Repression is a central element of the drama in both Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre. Chesterton? Seduction in these novels is a subtle, socially distanced affair. There may be cads and mistresses, damaged reputations, falls from grace and dishonourable conduct. But all matters of direct sexual engagement are barely alluded to, let alone explicitly depicted. Breeches remain firmly buckled, bodices remain securely bound. Happily for the novelist, Chesterton, the suggestion of prelude to and promise of sex is often more sensual than the act itself.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. Love the First Doctor. It was First Doctor, surely.
It was First Doctor.
Yeah.
Okay, because it also could have been Colin Baker.
It could, yes. Actually, you're right. It could have been. I'll give you that.
Well, the actors themselves must look to the previous Doctors actually to draw certain elements, I presume, because there are elements that kind of span all the Doctors, I guess.
Such a scary role to take on, though, when you've come
I
behind
know.
after so many other classical people.
I genuinely can't wait for Nashuti. I kind of want the Tennant specials to be out the way.
Absolutely.
And I just want to see Nashuti do it.
Yeah, but what a clever thing to reboot it with Tennant.
I'm not a big fan. No, because
Are you not?
Really?
I'm not like. I have this saying that I say to people who are considering going back out with an ex. And I say, a ship that sails backwards never sees the sun rise. And they usually look at me and go, what?
Right, okay, Sam, you have to find a wildcard genre for me now.
I do. Right. Well, I would like you to do. Actually, I don't mind which script you do. Let me see. I want you to be a jailer.
Oh. Okay.
You can be a kindly jailer, should you wish to be, or you can be a bit of a bastard. Pick your. But I think, therefore, perhaps we'll do second script.
Okay. I thought you were going to go with the first one.
Well,
right.
I can do first one.
No. It's like,
Okay.
Repression is a central element of the drama in both Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre. Seduction in these novels is a subtle, socially distanced affair. Now, there may be cads and mistresses and damaged reputations, falls from grace and dishonourable conduct, but all matters of direct sexual engagement are barely alluded to, let alone explicitly depicted. Breeches remain firmly buckled. Bodices remain securely bound. Happily for the novelist, the suggestion of prelude to and promise of sex is often more sensual than the act itself.
Don't lock me in, sir. Don't lock me in.
I really enjoyed your sex.
Exactly.
I kind of had a little bit in my brain of the really horrible one in Porridge. What's his name?
Mackay,
Mr. Mackay.
Yeah, Mr. Mackay. Yeah. Yes.
A little bit.
I really felt like, and this is me coming out again, I just really felt like you were one of the bad guys from Blake 7. Looking at, I kind of saw you in that kind of black leather. I mean,
Yeah. So futuristic
and
jailer, you were going.
Yeah, futuristic jailer.
And I was going Victorian jailer. So that's incredible.
So my performance had three completely different.
So complex, complex.
Well, that either means it was brilliant or absolutely terrible.
Let's
Take
go
it brilliant.
with brilliant.
Let's go with brilliant. Yeah, why not? Why not? Well, if you want to play along with any of the scripts in your own booth, the privacy that you have there, we put the scripts in the show notes so you can have a try yourself.
Yes. And if you've got any voiceover questions you'd like answers to, you can send your question for future episodes to podcast@britishvoiceover.co.uk.
Well, our question this week is, when you're recording in your booth, and David's in his booth, and Sam's in her booth, and I'm in my booth at the moment, what items do you always like to have in there with you? So it's a bit of a look around. What have you got in your booth?
Well, I've got a cup of tea.
Good, good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Always like to walk into a session with a cup of tea. Apart from all the obvious equipment,
Yes.
it's a cup of tea and some water.
Oh, so no real accoutrements?
Not apart from all this stuff like the audio interface and the microphone, obviously.
The microphone, obviously. I was kind of taking that as read.
No, I didn't
Interesting.
really have much.
Okay.
I've got a pencil.
Yeah, well, that's important.
Don't know why. I haven't got any paper.
Oh, okay, yeah. The hangover from the days where you marked up a script on a bit of paper. Yeah, yeah.
God knows what that's doing here.
Well, in my booth, I've got one of these. A dog clicker. So I've got a dog clicker to easily pick up. I have my beaker of water, but I also have a piece of string that is around 2 foot long. And the reason I have a piece of string is my headphones the cable always gets tangled and tangled and tangled. You hold the piece of string by both ends. Okay, so it's a kind of loop. But in the bottom of the loop, you've got your headphones hanging, the top bit of the headphone.
Oh.
And then you twist it round and round and round, and it unravels the tangled cable.
How did you discover this?
Like a swing.
Yeah, like a swing almost. I think one day I just got so pissed off with it that I thought, and turning it round and round and round in my hands, that I thought, oh, how can I turn it more quickly?
Oh, you were just clever.
That's cool. And so, David, what have you got?
What's in
string
your
in your
booth?
booth?
Right, so, yeah, tea, water, and this Chinese herbal concoction that's apparently the Chinese have been using for hundreds of years, which I swear by.
Oh.
It's really thick and just it's lovely.
What is it?
Do you know what?
Tell me what it's called.
I'll send you a link to it. Maybe you can put it in the
Yes.
show notes.
Absolutely.
It is an essential part of my voiceover kit, whatever I'm doing now.
Wow.
But it's really thick and it really coats your throat. It's like this miracle voice thing. It's incredible.
Oh, I definitely want that.
But yeah, no, I'll send you a link. But so the other thing I have is a little figurine of my favourite superhero.
Oh, brilliant.
oh, come on,
Who
tell
is?
you. Who is?
The Question. Exactly. That usually is met by a bit of...
By a question.
Yeah, so
I need to look him up. I'm looking up the question, or I'm looking up now.
He kind of wears a trilby and a trench coat, but his mask is blank and adheres to his face. It just looks like he's got no face.
I see him. I've just looked him up. My God, he's a dude, isn't he?
I'm telling you, right?
Golly.
Wow.
And usually a spaceship, and today's spaceship is from Serenity, TV show called Serenity, called the Firefly.
So do you have a number of spaceships that you could bring into your booth at any given time?
I love that. I love that.
I like that.
I mean, you don't do a podcast called The Geek Syndicate without having spaceships around, do
I've
you?
got Eagles from Space 1999. I've got Battlestar. I've got Battlestars. I've got... I have to
Amazing.
stop buying them now because I can't really justify the expense. So.
Oh, well, on that note, let me say a huge thank you to our guest, David Monteith.
Yes.
Thank you, David. I hope you've enjoyed it.
It's been a joy.
We'll put
loved
all of
having
your
you.
details in the show notes.
Definitely. And remember, listeners, the easiest way to listen to How Do You Say That is to say to your smart speaker, Alexa, play How Do You Say That? But you can also subscribe on your favourite podcast platform, and the latest episode will magically appear on your device every Friday.
All right, that's it for this week. Thanks again to David Monteith for being a superb guest.
Thank you, David.
We all do the end bit together, David. You know, I know you've listened to the podcast. So, all right, let's see if we can all do it. Right, okay, so here we go. Tune in next week for more scripts and another fabulous voiceover guest when we'll be asking...
How do you say
that?
How do you say that?